dark earth, smell the sweet green pine. I breathe the cool blue air. I've got a song on my mind.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Canadian singer Monika Wall. After a decade of establishing herself as an international singer, her songs have been heard on national radio and concert stages, festivals, and house concerts in both North America and Europe. She just released a new 2018 CD called Earth, and it again shows off her talents and range. She talked about this release and so much more, so please get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
Monika, thank you for taking a minute out to speak with Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's go ahead and start off here, and I want to know, first of all, where were you born and raised?
In Winnipeg, Canada.
How did you get involved with music? How were the beginnings, not only of music, but with jazz?
Music, that was from day one. My family is musical, and I was exposed to music in school, and I was singing nonstop, even as a child, to the great annoyance of my brother. But, was always singing, and then just when I went to university, it just seemed to be the only thing I wanted to study, so that's why I just kept going in that direction.
Talk to me a little bit about your latest album. It's entitled Earth. What went into this album for you? How do you feel about how it came out?
Oh, a lot went into it. A lot of heart, a lot of soul, a lot of time and effort, and it was a slowly crafted piece of work, and I'm really proud of what we've ended up with.
So talk to me about you're releasing it out of albums. You've won awards. You've been recognized quite widely for your work. Do you see each album as kind of an evolution or an imprint in time? How do you view each successive album that you release?
I really look at each one as its own entity, yes. When I write music, I don't plan on what I'm going to be writing. There's not a master plan in the back of my mind. I just will, wake up in the night and have this song in my head, or hear somebody say a phrase and think, oh, that's a song, and it just, evolves into a song. So I just write songs as they come, and then I gather together a group of these songs that just feel like these are really good songs, and somehow they seem to interrelate, and then eventually I actually realized that, oh, there's a theme going on here, but I didn't know it when I was writing them. I just realized that, these influences have now created this group of songs that relate to each other.
So speaking of influences and albums, when you were growing up, what jazz albums were you listening to that left a deep impression on you?
I really like the old stuff, like Ella and Frank Sinatra, and that kind of, that's what I really loved growing up, just the really old stuff. And then later, as I got older, I started listening to, Diana Krall, who I love. I think she's amazing. But I liked the way she interpreted things, but I liked that she also did a lot of those old songs, too.
Speaking of old and antiquated, you spent 5 years in Europe going to cathedrals singing. Talk to me about that experience.
I was living in Europe. I moved to Europe to pursue music, and while I was there, I met they're called cantors. They're church musicians, and they were putting on concerts, and they hired me to do a variety of music, but also some spirituals. And then that sort of caught on, and I started doing a number of concerts of just spirituals. When I was 18, I spent a year in the U.S. Studying music, and was able to sing in African American gospel choir. And so I really sort of picked up the feel of that music, and I guess I brought that to the spirituals, and people were a little bit surprised that this relatively small woman was able to make these really loud and full-throated sounds that seemed to be quite authentic. So I got a really positive reaction to that, and that kind of took me in that direction of singing more of the spirituals. I actually started out in classical music because there was no jazz program where I was studying. So I started out with classical and then sort of moved over into jazz when I was in Europe. Those are the years that I transitioned.
On your website and in your bio, your songs have been described as having both power and intimacy. There's a timeless quality that makes your music hauntingly familiar while retaining your own personal stamp of quality and integrity. Would you use that as a selling point? Say you come to Kansas City, you got a show, and you have to write a description of what you do and to pull people into your show. Would that be an apt description, or will you add or modify that in any way?
Well, I would say that when I'm in a concert setting with people, that they do definitely get a sense of who I am, and that I draw them into my world while we're together in that room. And that would be, I'm a pretty open person, and the music reflects that. So I would agree that all of those things that I say are true. The music is personal and intimate, and yet I think a lot of these messages are universal. I think these are the same things that all of us are dealing with. And so I like to do a variety, and I bring people to different kinds of emotions. So I might do something that's very intimate and gentle, and then I might turn around and, blast them with a blues tune that kind of makes them feel like getting up and dancing. So, yeah, I think you do go through a series of emotions in every concert that I do, and I think that's hopefully part of the fun.
So this sophomore EP, Earth, what do you want the listener to get from this album experience?
Well, Earth to me is about finding your place on this earth, about grounding yourself, and then doing the thing that you're on this earth to do. So making your mark, whatever that is, if that's gentle or bold, but true to yourself, and leaving a legacy for the next generation. Sort of, we only have so and so much time on this earth, and this album celebrates that time and those choices that we make along the way. And there's, for me, sometimes it's, I set goals and I want to do things, and then whatever doubts or fears that are in my mind can hold me back. And so some of these songs are about just overcoming those things that hold us back and just go and do what you're here to do.
So speaking of choices and the journey that we're on in our limited amount of time down here on Earth, are you happy with where your career is at right now?
I'm happy, but you can always, you're always looking to do the next step. So I'm happy with the things I've done, but I'm wanting to continue to do more. I'm certainly still very hungry and wanting to get out there and continue singing and writing more songs I love to write, and putting out more albums, and just, keep on going.
The way that we learn, especially probably as a musician, is you can learn from the classroom, you can learn from actual experience on stage, but you can also learn from seeing performances. What jazz shows have you seen that left a really big impression on you? I
can't think specifically of a show in my mind, but what I love is when whoever's on stage can reach out to an audience and grab them and create a moment that is lasting, that makes you feel like we're all in this together. To me, that's a great performer. If they can create that, that's what I think is magical.
So why do you love jazz?
It's an expression of both of individual creativity and group creativity, right? Whoever's performing is, what the player next to me is playing is affecting how I'm singing, vice versa. And so we it's like a little dance that we're doing together. That's pretty amazing, right? I mean, I think that's wonderful when we can have that experience.
I always have the opportunity, because I speak to more American musicians, to ask, how is jazz doing in 2018? But I want to speak specifically to Canada and kind of the temperature there. How is jazz doing in Canada in 2018?
There's a lot of young jazz musicians coming up that are amazing. I think the future looks very bright. There's a lot of interest in it. I think a lot of collaboration and crossover into other genres as well. So taking jazz and then mixing it with other genres and coming up with something that's, altogether new and exciting. I would say that's what's happening with jazz here in Canada.
So let me ask you a question. This is my final question. It's going to come down to a little bit of an essence of you. Everyone has a version or a way that they see who you are, your family, your friends, your fans, colleagues, but you know yourself best. Who do you think you are?
I am someone who wants to connect with people through my music. I feel like the music is given to me. It's a gift. I'm not one of these people that struggles to write music. These songs just sort of come to me. And I feel that that's my role, is to pass them on to others and hopefully give some light to their path for a moment along their way and hopefully brighten their lives. That's what I think, what I'm here to do.
Wonderful. I think that's a great way to wrap everything up. And I appreciate, Monika, you taking some time to talk about Earth, to talk about your career in music, and thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Canada, the United States, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Monika for her music and her time. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Ooh, how it sets me
Neon Jazz.